So after the latest episode of Recoil, all I can say is it definitely feels like they're painting CHISATO'S time running out. Now that doesn't necessarily mean death, but we have started to get a taste of who she was before she kind of had her no-kill attitude. Hell, Majima himself is very much now enthralled and just so needy of this girl, who he knows damn well, like, had she used live rounds, he would have been dead there. But because she didn't and held herself back, she was the one who almost got killed. Now there's this, like, it almost feels like two halves of the same coin and how they're both targeting each other. But now it feels like with the way they ended the episode, especially with the after the credits moment, it feels like the tower situation, this tower that has now been used as almost like a symbol of peace, all the bad shit that goes on gets covered up by governments and everything like that. But now it feels like this man, this green-haired lunatic, is about to do something that will make the previous moment with CHISATO look so small in comparison in terms of a terrorism level act. And I mean, it feels nearly impossible for this show not to have her use live rounds before it's over. I do imagine they'll probably do something along the lines of having, like, Takina pull her away before making a killing blow, but it almost feels like with where they're going from literally the person she's been looking for, she gets the confirmation who it is by episode 7. I honestly didn't think she'd learn until episode 10 or 11, but she learns, but it doesn't go the way she expected, and based on Teach literally pulling a gun on this man saying free her, let her do her own thing, and him basically unflinchingly saying no, and then pulls an even bigger dick move out, it feels like she has to kill or something's gonna go wrong. You don't save this girl's life and not have her do what you want for that long without eventually a kill switch being activated and potentially just making her do it, or, you know, either do it or die sort of a thing. Now, I'm not sure if they'll actually end in a depressing way or not, but all signs are pointing for emotional nonetheless. Even if someone doesn't necessarily die out of the main cast, like, I wouldn't be shocked if Teach was the one who ended up dead instead of Takina or CHISATO or anything like that. But all things considered, it feels like with the way they're directing the past couple of episodes, you don't put her in a nearly death-filled situation unless you're saying she needs to use live rounds against a man who very much plays dirty, and that fighting dirty almost got her killed last week. Had Takina not been there, she would have been, her brains would have been splattered. So it feels like between this man seemingly indicating that she needs to use her full potential, and that is not hold herself back and protect people with rubber bullets, but maybe do these hard-hitting missions that only she can do, such as stopping a grand-level terrorist attack rather than working at a cafe and doing whatever she wants. It feels like live rounds are kind of like what they're painting her as, like she needs to start using those, and potentially, based on that little flashback we got, and hell, you can look at the opening and the, you know, just the teaser trailers that were surrounding the show before it aired, it all very much paints that red-eyed CHISATO with her live rounds. I don't think we're just only going to see that in flashbacks. It feels like we're probably going to build up to that moment. Sure, you could argue, at the end of the episode, she comes into work the next day, smiling and happy as ever, but as we see, it feels like the cracks are starting to show that on paper and at surface level, she seems exactly the same, but it almost feels like we're slowly getting more into her fracturing, and just these simpler moments with the animation or the way her voice actress just performs certain lines, it feels worrying. And that has me excited, because the more worrying the show gets, the more exciting it is to anticipate future episodes, even if you do want to see all these characters make it to the finish line. And for an episode that was actually pretty fun, they had a lot of fun with the humor. They had a lot of fun, like when Teach was initially going out with what they thought was a date, he comes back in to say something and they have to pretend like they were just doing something that was perfectly not suspicious. And then the fact that when they see him meet up, they're like, well, you know what, love comes in all shapes and sizes, that was our bad, and then they immediately try to leave. It was really humorous to see how they're playing with scenes that I think we were expecting to be a little more explosive when they did bump in to this type of knowledge, and the casual them sneaking behind the bushes as she overhears some pretty crucial details was pretty fantastic, especially given the fact that they're still continuing to have fun with the Yuri bait, whether it's just the kind of clinginess in prior scenes to literally talking and going face first into a butt, and that was pretty hilarious. But I mean, this show is not letting up. Like I said, the first few episodes of this show, while really solid, it feels like where we're currently at with the past couple, if not 3 or 4, it just feels like in a completely different league of its own. And based on the fact that Majima isn't going anywhere just yet, he's a psychotic, brilliant antagonist that very much he shakes the show to its core, and the way he can use and manipulate people, the fact that he's targeting someone who he very much is now like, this is my next kill 100%, and I hope she uses those live bullets, or, you know, I'm gonna force her hand to replicate the biggest moment that the city's seen, gonna force her into this, and I'm gonna make sure she doesn't leave alive, as you have the person who seemingly saved her saying this isn't what she was meant to do. And it feels like the more no is said to this man, the more we get to the point of how free is this girl really going to be. If you can point a gun in front of someone's face, and not only do you admit you couldn't pull the trigger, even if they believed you could, the fact that they didn't flinch and they like literally do the wall slam, I mean, there's no hope, it feels like. And it'll be interesting to see how they get out of this predicament and what the ending of this show would look like, because it's actually kind of hard to imagine what the end of the show would be. Is it the world uncovers the truth about the things being covered up, as we saw, a giant shooting, just Yakuza members, you know, oh, something happened in the subway, explosion, right? You know, like maybe that's the direction they want to go? Or is the ending going to be specifically tied on the cafe story and the world will continue to function the way it always has? I'm not exactly sure what I want to see, but based on what I've seen over now 7 episodes, I'm pretty confident in the fact that whatever they decide to go with is probably going to be exactly what the show needs to be for a final episode and kind of like an ending to tie it all together. And I mean, depending on how they decide to wrap it all up, there's also potential that they could do a season 2, right? You know, if Takina and Chisato and the main crew do make it out alive, I think there is a lot of potential with this world. Right now, the mystery and I think the main story hook is about the general terrorism that's currently going on / what happens to Chisato by the time we reach the finish line. But I think it would work perfectly well if they did decide to do a season 2 with like just other threats that they'd have to deal with, and other drama that could pop up with other character arcs, right? There's a lot to explore with a decent-sized supporting cast. So it's on one hand, I could see them easily concluding it in one season and me saying, I don't need more, I'm glad that they're stopping it here. But I think the more, I guess, selfish side of me is thinking, man, imagine 2 or 3 seasons of this show really getting a fleshed out cast in that way. Because as much as I love the bickering, the head slaps, and everything else, I feel like there's a lot of untapped potential that future seasons could really dive into, but I guess we'll have to wait and see how this season wraps up before we even really wish if it gets a season 2, because as far as we know, we could leave this season with one of our key players no longer there, and if you don't have that Chisato x Takina dynamic, I'm not sure how much I would want to see a season 2, but I guess we'll see, right? Great episode, still one of the better episodes I think this show has had to date. It's explosive, it's romantic, it's exciting, but it's also worrying, but in a very entertaining way, so very excited to see where they take it next week. But what do you hope to see? Theories if you got any? Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. So next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.